Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pasyachadishatarine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pasyachadishatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Jai Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Hari Ki Jai Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Dear devotees, it's my pleasure and honor to be in your company today for today's presentation. I have a PowerPoint presentation we'll put up. So let me stop sharing, sorry. All right. So today we are going to do a presentation which is entitled As Brilliant as the Sun. How Lord Krishna went west in his incarnation as Srimad-Bhagavatam. And it's going to be in the form of a journey and also a story. And the story is a wonderful story of how the plan of the Lord unfolds. And our story is going to take the form of a journey. And on this journey, we're going to make many stops, a few stops. First, we will go to Vrindavan, and from Vrindavan, we'll go to New Delhi, then we'll go to Naimisharanya, then Badrik Ashram, then Jagannath Puri, then Calcutta, back to Delhi, Cochin, Los Angeles, and I put Lechmo Heath here because this was from another presentation I did. But for our purposes today, we're going to finish off our journey in Manchester. So we are going to go on this wonderful journey together. So tighten your seatbelts and let's go. But before we start off, normally we have to make sure that the context is right and we're all prepared. So before we embark on the actual journey, there's a few contextual discussions we need to have. And the first aspect is this wonderful verse from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, from the first canto, third chapter, text 43. Krishne swadhama pagate dharma gyanadabi saha kalo nasta drisha mesha puranarko dunoditaha. That this Bhagavat Purana is as brilliant as the sun. And it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall find light from this Purana. So that's the first thing, is to give some context to as brilliant as the sun. So this is going to be the story of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And this Bhagavatam is the incarnation of Krishna. We know from the Vedic literatures that the night before the Lord disappeared from this planet after being on earth for about 125 years, he met Uddhava. And Uddhava asked the Lord, what is going to become of the world, Dharma, and of us once you depart? And Lord Krishna said, don't worry. As I am ascending to Goloka Dham, I will descend in the form of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And that is also nicely captured in the 40th verse of the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, of the Bhagavatam. Idam Bhagavatam nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyayasya Lokasya Danyan Swati Ayanam Mahat. That this Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God. And it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. In the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada writes something very, very significant. In the last 3 lines, he writes, one can derive from the study of the Bhagavatam all benefits that are possible to be derived from the personal presence of the Lord. It carries with it all the transcendental blessings of Lord Sri Krishna that we can expect from his personal contact. I'll just read that again. we can derive all the benefits that are possible to be derived from the personal presence of the Lord. And it carries with it all the transcendental blessings that one can expect from the personal contact with the Lord. Very, very significant. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that when one has the association, the presence of Bhagavatam, that presence is non-different from having the personal presence of Lord Krishna. And Prabhupada explains, or it's explained, Vyasadeva explains in the 12th canto, that this Srimad-Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana. It is most dear to the Vaishnavas because it describes the pure and supreme knowledge of the Paramahamsas. This Bhagavatam reveals the means for becoming free from all material work. Together with the process of transcendental knowledge, renunciation and devotion, anyone who seriously tries to understand Srimad-Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants it with devotion, becomes completely liberated. Just like if we were in the personal presence of the Lord, we would become completely liberated. In the same way, through the association of Srimad-Bhagavatam, we can become completely liberated. So having covered that context, we'll start our journey in Vrindavan about 5,000 years ago, the occasion of the birth of Lord Krishna, Shri Krishna Janmashtami, which we just celebrated. And we explore the reason of why the Lord appears. Now, the commonly discussed and mentioned reasons for the appearance of the Lord is that he appeared to subdue the evil forces and demonic personalities and to re-establish religion. The famous verse, Yada 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 Idharmasya Glanir Bhavati Bharata. This is generally the reason people think the Lord appears. But Srila Prabhupada teaches us, and the Acharyas teach us, and Prabhupada has written this in quite a few instances in the Krishna book and his purports to the Bhagavatam, that actually the main reason that the Lord appears is to attract us. And he attracts us through the wonderful, amazing, sweet pastimes he performs with his eternal associates. So that is the main reason why the Lord appears. Now that reason for the appearance of the Lord, the Leelas he performed, that was meant for the benefit of human society all the way through. But the truth is that only a few very fortunate souls who were on earth at the same time as the Lord experienced that Leela. So in one sense, the purpose of the Lord to have that Leela become available for all people after his descent, which was the main reason for his descent, was yet to be fulfilled. How would people like us, 5,000 years after the descent of the Lord, take advantage of hearing about, experiencing and relishing and fixing our minds on that beautiful Vrindavan Leela that the Lord performed? How would we? So the preserving the reason for the Lord's descent was another plan of the Lord. And this is the plan we will discuss. And that plan starts to unfold about 30 years after the Lord departed. And we move to the pastime of Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Arjuna, who Krishna personally saved in the womb of his mother Uttara. And then we see how the plan of the Lord unfolds. Maharaj Parikshit, a great devotee of the Lord, is out hunting. And then he feels a very intense thirst. And he comes upon the ashram of the great Samika Rishi. And he approaches the sage with the hope of the sage offering him some water to drink. But the sage is deep in meditation. He pays no heed to Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit Maharaj, uncharacteristically, totally against his normal nature, becomes upset, picks up a dead snake with his bow, and he wraps it around the head of the meditating rishi. And in this purport, Prabhupada asks the question, how is it that Maharaj Parikshit, who would never behave in such a way towards the great saintly persons, how is it such a great personality became like this and acted in this way? And Prabhupada writes in the purport to 1:1830, he says, it happened by the will of the Lord. And Prabhupada said, the Lord wanted Srimad-Bhagavatam to be spoken for the welfare of all. And he orchestrated events to lead up to the Bhagavatam being spoken. So that was the first plan of the Lord. And then Maharaj Parikshit, the sage's son, Shringi, appears. He sees what has happened to his father. He becomes angry and he curses Maharaj Parikshit. I curse you that you will die within 7 days. And Maharaj Parikshit, immediately, he takes that as the plan of the Lord. And this is the mood of a devotee. A devotee sees every occurrence of events in his life as the plan of the Lord. And Srimad-Bhagavatam writes that when Maharaj Parikshit received this curse, he did not only say, this is a curse, I accept it. The Bhagavatam writes, he accepted it joyfully. In a joyful mood, he accepted this curse. Because why? How can one see such a curse joyfully? Because he saw it as the plan of the Lord, that he was now becoming an instrument in the plan of the Lord. So he leaves his entire royal regalia, gives it to his son, and he sets off to the bank of the river Ganges. And when he arrives with just a kopin, he sits down and waits to be instructed on what to do. And many sages know that some unprecedented event is going to take place, and they all arrive. But no one is sure who's going to instruct Maharaj Parikshit. And then in walks Shukadev Goswami, the son of Vedavyas, the greatest of all the sages. And the moment he arrived, intuitively everybody knew that he was the person to instruct Maharaj Parikshit. And they offered him the seat of the spiritual master. And Maharaj Parikshit starts off by asking the most relevant of all questions. What is the duty of one who is about to die? What should he hear about Who should he think about? Who should he speak about? And who should he worship? This is the most relevant of all questions, because of all of us are going to die. Maharaj Parikshit was fortunate to know that he was going to die in 7 days. We did not even know if we got 7 minutes to live. And then Shukadev Goswami replies in the most wonderful way. He says, the duty of one who is about to die is to constantly hear about, chant, and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And then he asks Maharaj Parikshit, shall we do that? And the king said, yes, my lord, please. And for the next 7 days, Srimad-Bhagavatam gets spoken. And sitting in that audience is also the great sages like Sri Narad Muni, Veda Vyas, and all of the other great sages. So this happened 30 years after the departure of Lord Krishna. Bhagavatam gets spoken. And then some 200 years later, another wonderful event takes place. The unfolding of the Lord's plan. 77,000 of the greatest thinkers of the world gathered together in a holy place called Naimisharanya. And the purpose of these sages, they all have the ability to see the coming of the age of Kali. And they can see all that is going to happen. Brexit, coronavirus, unemployment, so many things. So many things. They can see the suffering of the residents of Kali Yuga. And they said, our duty is to come up with a way and a plan of how these poor residents of Kali Yuga can be benefited, how they can be saved. And they have a big discussion. And after a long discussion, the consensus they reach is that they should perform a Agni Otra, a fire sacrifice. So they start a big fire, they gather all the amount of ghee, and they start to chant the mantras for auspiciousness. And they pour ghee. Swaha, Swaha, Swaha. And this goes on for 100 years. But after 100 years, all of them have the strong feeling that this is not going to do the business. This is not going to be able to help those poor residents of Kali Yuga. And they all fall completely despondent. What to do? Has anyone got any other better ideas? 77,000 of them just shake their head. And there's complete despondency in the assembly. But then suddenly, as they stand near the bank of the river, they see a very effulgent sage by the name of Sutta Goswami arriving. And they all run to Sutta Goswami. And they say, Sutta Goswami, this is our dilemma. And then Sutta responds and says, don't worry. I have the exact solution you are seeking. He says about 200 years ago, I sat in the assembly in which Srimad-Bhagavatam was spoken by Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. So there's complete excitement among the sages. They give Sutta Goswami the seat. And they decide that all 77,000 of them ask questions. It's going to be quite chaotic. They choose a spokesman, Shonaka Rishi, and they decide, let's group our questions together. And they come up with 6 questions. And the first question is the most important question, one of the most important questions. And the first question that Shaunaka Rishi on behalf of the 77,000 sages put to Sutta Goswami is, what is the ultimate good for all people? What is the ultimate good for all people? What a wonderful question. And that was aimed with the thought, what is the ultimate good for these people of Kali Yuga? Does anyone know what was the answer? I'm sure many of you know. I'd like to hear it from one of you.
Yes, Yatho Bhaktira Dokshaje.
Yeah.
So, the supreme occupational duty for the humankind is by which one can attain the loving devotional service unto Sri Krishna.
Yes. Savai pumsa parodharmo yato bhakti adokshaje ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation for all living entities, which can make them happy, which is for the ultimate good, is the devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And to completely satisfy the self, that devotional service should be uninterrupted and unmotivated. So devotional service, and later on there is talk that the best form of devotional service is Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. So that was spoken 200 years ago, but still this was only known by, and then they asked him to describe the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, still by a select few who knew Sanskrit. So we go to the next stage of the Lord's plan. We go to Badrik Ashram, the ashram of Vedavyas near the Himalayan mountains. And the scene is set. It is early in the morning. Vedavyas, as he does every morning, he goes to the river Saraswati to take his bath. And as he stands in the water, Vedavyas feels very dissatisfied. He feels incomplete. And he thinks to himself, what could be the cause of this feeling I'm having? I am the literary incarnation, and I've written the one Veda. Then I expanded it to 4. Then I wrote Vedanta Sutra. Then I wrote Mahabharata. And in the Mahabharata is Bhagavad Gita. I've given so much of the Vedic literature, all for the benefit of humankind. What could be the cause of my feeling of discontent and dissatisfaction? And as he's thinking like that, his guru, the great sage Devarishi Narad, appears. And as explained in the first canto of Bhagavatam, in that beautiful conversation, Vedavyas asks his guru, why am I feeling dissatisfied? And his guru says, the reason for your dissatisfaction is, I've done a review of all the books you've written. And the truth is that if anybody wants to understand with certainty what is the goal of all spiritual practices and what is the highest of all spiritual processes, they'll be confused. Because you have described so many things. You've described artha, economic development. You've described kama, sense gratification in a regulated way. You've described dharma, religiosity in so many different ways, demigod worships and so on. And you've described moksha, liberation. And you've described so many ways, so many paths that if anybody studies, they will be confused. But through all of your writings, you fail to describe the most important thing, and that is the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and devotional service to Krishna. That you have failed to do. And that's why you're feeling dissatisfied. And it was at that moment that Vedavyas had the eureka moment. He said, yes, I understand. And at that time he goes, sits in his meditation, and the whole Bhagavatam comes to him, and he writes. So Bhagavatam has now those pastimes of the Lord. The main purpose has come for, to perform the pastimes, to attract us, has now been captured. It's been captured in the form of Srimad-Bhagavatam. But still, there is a problem. And to understand that problem, we're going to make a small stop at Jagannath Puri, about 500 years ago. And this is the picture of Srinivasacharya. Srinivasacharya, one of our great acharyas, a great devotee of the Lord. He has an intense desire to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he hears that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is residing in Jagannath Puri. So Srinivas sets off for Jagannath Puri with this anticipation, this excitement to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But when he lands in Jagannath Puri, he's given news that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has just left the world. And he is completely devastated. And his mind becomes consumed with the thought that he should commit suicide. Life is not worth living. If he cannot have the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there is no use in him living. He should commit suicide. And as he goes to bed that evening to take rest, as he is sleeping in his dream, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes. And he tells Srinivas, do not worry, Srinivas. If you go to Sri Gadadhar Pandit, and you study Srimad-Bhagavatam under him, you will feel my presence. You will feel my presence. So Srinivas has this amazing dream in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes in his dream. And the next thing is morning, as soon as he gets up, he rushes to the place where Gadadhar Pandit is. And he tells Gadadhar Pandit about his dream, where the Lord told him to study Srimad-Bhagavatam. And in this way, he will feel his presence. Study Srimad-Bhagavatam under the tutelage of Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit says, yes, sure. If that's what Mahaprabhu said, that's what we shall do. Then Srinivas said, let's start studying Bhagavatam. But Gadadhar Pandit says, but I don't have Bhagavatam. Do you have Bhagavatam? And Srinivasacharya says, but you and Mahaprabhu were studying Bhagavatam every day. So we use that Bhagavatam. And then Gadadhar Pandit says, but that Bhagavatam no longer exists. What do you mean? He said, every day we would read Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu and I, and tears would just flow from our eyes. And in this way, all of the ink got erased. So there's no more Bhagavatam. You need to get a copy of Bhagavatam. Then we can study. So Srinivas got another dilemma now. So he decides to go back to Bengal. And after searching, he finds one manuscript that he can borrow. Now he needs to get that manuscript copied. He goes in search of many leaves by which Bhagavatam can be copied. Then he looks to find scribes to scribe the Bhagavatam. He finds some, and then they start the work. And after 6 months, Srinivasacharya has a full copy of Bhagavatam. And excitedly, he rushes back to Jagannath Puri to show Gadadhar Pandit the Bhagavatam under which he can study. But as soon as he reaches Jagannath Puri, another devastating news. Gadadhar Pandit has just left the planet. He has just left the planet. So he's devastated. And the story goes on, but we don't want to digress too much into that story. But the purport of the story is how difficult it was, although the Bhagavatam became available through Veda Vyas compiling it, how to get a copy. And now we move to our fifth stop, Calcutta, 1922. A young man by the name of Abhay Charanaravinda. He's pulled by his friend Narendra to go meet a great saintly person. And young Abhay Charanavinda meets this great saintly personality, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And without even any greetings, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tells Abhay, you are a young, educated man. Why don't you preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the English-speaking world? And Abhay receives this order to now transplant the entire Vedic literature, the entire Vedic culture, the culture of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the English world. This was a tall order. And then Abhay keeps this instruction in his head. Constantly, the instruction of his Guru Maharaj, who he subsequently took initiation from. And eventually, this Abhay Charan takes sannyas in Vrindavan. And he gets the name Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami. And Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, in his meditation, he is thinking, my Guru Maharaj instructed me to preach in the English language. And he starts Back to Godhead magazine. But one day he meets a gentleman, and the gentleman says, why don't you translate Srimad-Bhagavatam into English? And Srila Prabhupada, then known as Bhaktivedanta Swami, decides this is an instruction from my Guru Maharaj. This is an instruction from the Parampara to translate Srimad-Bhagavatam into English. And Srila Prabhupada, or Bhaktivedanta Swami, at that time decides to make this his life's mission, to translate Bhagavatam into the English-speaking language. He gets a typewriter, and with 2 fingers, he starts typing, translating Bhagavatam. And after much difficult endeavor of typing the manuscripts himself, purchasing the paper himself, collecting the funds for printing himself, and finding a printer, and daily going to the printer to review the drafts, the first volume of the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam gets printed in English-speaking language. A great moment in the history of our civilization. The plan of Lord Krishna has now taken its first step in unfolding. Very quickly, Srila Prabhupada does the second volume and the third volume. And in time, Srila Prabhupada completes the entire first canto, putting everything he had into those first 3 volumes of the first canto. And Srila Prabhupada feels, now I am ready to go to the West. And as we know, the story of Srila Prabhupada, how he managed to get the ticket, and eventually he boards the Jaluduta. 1965, he boards the Jaluduta. And this Jaluduta makes a few stops before it embarks on its journey across the Atlantic to America. And one of the stops was Cochin, the city of Cochin. And in the city of Cochin, 200 sets of the 3 volumes of Srimad-Bhagavatam are loaded onto the Jaluduta. And Swamiji sets off. Just before he sets off, he meets a gentleman, an Indian gentleman. And the Indian gentleman tells him, Swamiji, I heard you are going to America. And Swamiji says, no, I am not going to America. Srimad Bhagavatam is going to America. And I'm simply going along. So Srila Prabhupada saw that Srimad Bhagavatam is going to America. And the trip, the Jaluduta, it crosses the Atlantic. And we know the amazing story that you can tell some other time of the Atlantic crossing. But eventually, the Jaluduta reaches the shores of America. And when it reaches the shores of America, Srila Prabhupada looks out and he sees the skyscraper buildings. And he has some vision of the population. And he writes a beautiful poem on board the Jaluduta. And I will read to you a few stanzas, the English translation of that poem, which reveals Srila Prabhupada's mind. Srila Prabhupada writes, most of the population here is covered by the material molds of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied. And therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. So Srila Prabhupada is thinking, I am coming with the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva. How can I make them understand this? But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? Oh Lord, I am simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them of your message. All living entities have become under the control of the illusory energy by your will. And therefore, if you like, by your will, they can be also released from the clutches of illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. The words of Srimad-Bhagavatam are your incarnation. And if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. So Prabhupada is, you can just imagine Prabhupada's situation. He is coming with this great mission and he sees what's confronting him. And he wonders, how is it this going to manifest? And he takes strength from the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And those of you who have read this poem, we know that Srila Prabhupada quotes those 4 very famous verses from the Bhagavatam. Shrinvata swakatam Krishna, punya shravana kirtanam, hridayanto stani bhadrani, vidunoti suritsatam. And nasta prayeshu abhadreshu. Basically, these verses, paraphrase, says, when someone hears your messages and someone develops an attraction for your messages, you, my Lord, entered into the heart of such a person and personally cleanse the heart of all unwanted things. And that messages means the messages of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada lands in America and still he has only 200 volumes. How is this going to, he distributes those 200 volumes, and at the same time he starts his monumental, he continues with his monumental work to translate the subsequent volumes into English. And by the kind arrangement of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada starts the Bhakti Vedanta Book Trust. And the Bhakti Vedanta Book Trust is the arm of Srila Prabhupada that starts the mass publication of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada continues his translation of the Bhagavatam. And eventually in 1977, he reaches the 10th canto. And in July, August of 1977, he translates the 13th chapter of the 10th canto, the Brahma Vimohana Lila. And Srila Prabhupada is in a very poor physical condition. He has not drunk and eaten for months. And his body is in a position, the Kaviraj says, simply by his skin touching his bone, he must be experiencing a very burning sensation. But even in that situation, Srila Prabhupada is continuing to translate Srimad-Bhagavatam.
And he says, karma hetu.
Karma hetu, if we engage in devotional service, we get a different nature. And if we engage in the business of sense gratification, the result is different.
And then that karma is tad dehopalabdhi hetu.
Yeah. And according to the association of different nature, we get a body. Karanam gunasammasya satasat janmayoni. Therefore, we should always seek good association, devotee association.
So here we see Srila Prabhupada. He's in a physical condition that is very hard, difficult to really grasp. But he continues to translate the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It gives us an idea of the intensity of Srila Prabhupada to want to fulfill the plan of the Lord, that Srimad-Bhagavatam will go across to every jiva. Every jiva will get the opportunity to get Srimad-Bhagavatam. And subsequently, after the passing away of Srila Prabhupada, the departure of Srila Prabhupada in November of 1977, his disciples take up the work of completing the remaining chapters and cantos, and they complete Canto 10, Canto 11, and Canto 12, and then the entire Srimad-Bhagavatam is printed. As the Padma Purana says, the Srimad-Bhagavatam is the body of Lord Krishna. The first 2 cantos are his feet, lotus feet. 3 and 4 cantos are his thighs. 5 is his lotus-like navel. 6 and 7 are his arms. 8 is his chest. 9 is his neck. 10 is his smiling face. 11 is his forehead. And 12 is his head. So the full body of Lord Krishna in the form of Srimad-Bhagavatam, by the unbelievable efforts, unbelievable effort of Srila Prabhupada, monumental effort of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the Lord had now become fully manifested in Kali Yuga in the form of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And that Bhagavatam has now come to all cities and all towns, and it has also come to the town of Manchester. And Srila Prabhupada has given his instruction. After doing all of the difficult work, he said, I want that every respectable person has a full set of Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita in their home. This was Srila Prabhupada's instruction. And this Srila Prabhupada saw as the complete fulfillment of the reason why Lord Krishna descended on this planet. Every person to have the form of the Lord in the form of Srimad-Bhagavatam in their home, so that they could read Srimad-Bhagavatam. They could relish Srimad-Bhagavatam. And in this way, the wonderful Vrindavan Leela of Lord would become manifest. And Prabhupada writes in the preface to his Bhagavatam, human society at the present moment is not in the darkness of oblivion. It has made rapid progress in the fields of material comforts, education, and economic development throughout the entire world. But there is a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large, and therefore there are large-scale quarrels, even over less important issues. There is a need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fulfill this need, for it's a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. Srimad-Bhagavatam should be introduced also in the schools and colleges, for it is recommended by the great student devotee Prahlad in order to change the demonic face of society. Now, some of you may be wondering, what's the connection between Srimad-Bhagavatam and the solution to all of the world's problems? The connection is quite simple. If we can trace and condense and bring all of the problems of the world, like typically coronavirus is a pandemic, global pandemic. And why did the coronavirus start? Because in some market in China, some jivas had become so contaminated that they started to eat all forms of animals, by which a virus became transmitted into the human society. So if we can trace all problems in the world, financial, economical, social, relationship, environmental, it can be narrowed down to one core problem. And that core problem is the condition of people's hearts. People's hearts which have been covered over by lust, greed, anger, hatred, misidentification with the material body. And in this way, everything springs forth from the condition of people's heart. If people have a dirty body, like sometimes we go to work or we go out and the body is contaminated We come back and we go under the shower, and with soap and water we cleanse the body. But how to cleanse the soul of the layers of unwanted things in the heart? And consistently Bhagavatam says the same thing. Simply by hearing Krishna Katha, simply by hearing the messages of Krishna, all that is unwanted in the heart becomes removed. So if people take Bhagavatam, if they read Bhagavatam, they hear Bhagavatam, all of the unwanted things will become removed. Like at the moment, the leaders of the world, they can see the world is heading in a wrong direction. They're looking for a solution. How do we change course of the human society so we do not carry on this path of destruction? But nobody has the idea. And Prabhupada says you can find the clue in Srimad-Bhagavatam. So that is the reason Srila Prabhupada wanted. Whenever the BBT would have money, and they would go to Srila Prabhupada and ask him, Srila Prabhupada, what book should we print? Without fail, Srila Prabhupada would always say, please print the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Please print Srimad-Bhagavatam. So we have this project, it's called Go Matsya. It's preserving Vedic culture through mass distribution and education. We have a mission. Actually, this is not only our generation. This is going to be the mission for the generation for the next 10,000 years. The mass distribution of Srimad-Bhagavatam and education of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And we have this project called Go Matsya. And for many years, devotees have been thinking how to mass distribute Srimad-Bhagavatam. And for many years, Srimad-Bhagavatam has never been on the top seller list. The distribution of Bhagavatam has always been incidental. Until one devotee or some devotees got the inspiration from the Bhagavatam itself, where in the 12th canto, 13th chapter, 13th verse, it says, if on the full moon night during the month of Bhadra, one places on a golden throne the Srimad Bhagavatam and gifts it to someone else, that person who is giving the gift will attain the transcendental destination in the next life. So grasping upon that wonderful falastuti, benediction, devotees have started the campaign of mass distribution. In 2018, the devotees asked Vaisheshika Prabhu, one of the trustees of the BBT, how many copies of Bhagavatam shall we print? He said 10,000. And they just looked at Vaisheshika Prabhu incredulously. And they said, Prabhu, we've never distributed 10,000 Bhagavatams before. He said, do it. And they printed. And in that Bhadra month, 1 month, or sometimes over 2 months, 7,000 sets of Bhagavatam were distributed. Last year, 6,500. And in this year, there's a goal to distribute 10,000 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a wonderful opportunity for all of us. If we feel some lacking in our life, if we feel that we do not have a mission in life, it is said having a mission in life is what makes life exciting. It's what makes life beautiful. This is a mission that is open to everyone. The mission to fulfill the order, the desire of the Lord, the desire of the 77,000 of the sages at Naimisharanya, the desire of Vedavyas, the desire of the Parampara, and most importantly, the desire of Srila Prabhupada. Nothing would make any of these great personalities happier than to see Srimad Bhagavatam distributed. As Vaisheshika Prabhu says, I have no doubt about it. So we're inviting devotees to please become involved. There's only 16 days left to the end of the 2020 Bhadra campaign. We request you to please take Bhagavatam if you do not have Bhagavatam. Distribute Bhagavatam and to give Bhagavatam. In one address that Srila Prabhupada gave when he first landed in America. He said, Prabhupada said, wait, I'll read it to you, just bear with me. Sorry, Prabhupada said something really wonderful. Hare Krishna. He said, when he first arrived, he explained to his disciples, if you cannot do, if you simply think, how can I do? How can I do? How can I do? Simply this, if you practically cannot do, but if you simply think, how can I do? Oh, then you will become liberated. Then also you become liberated. And what to speak of when we actually serve. These were the words for Srila Prabhupada. So we invite every one of you to please become involved in this mission to distribute Srimad-Bhagavatam and to contact your local devotees, Madhava Prabhu, Gaura Nataraj Prabhu, Govinda Prabhu, and become involved in this mission to spread Bhagavatam. If you have time, there's a 20-minute video call as brilliant as the sun. We could show that, but I'm not sure. I've got another commitment at 2:30, but I could show the video if you like, but it's about 20 minutes. So Gaura Nataraj Prabhu, I'm in your hands. What do you suggest? Do we take questions and reflections now?
Yes, maybe it's a good idea to just take a break now and see what's the mood, and then we will, and move forward from there.
All right.
Prabhu, firstly, thank you so much for that brilliant presentation. The presentation was as brilliant as sun. So wonderful journey you took us. You took us to Vrindavan to, then you took us to Shukratal to Naimisharanya to Jagannath Puri, like that. You took us and you have nicely encouraged us and motivated us to read and distribute this wonderful Srimad-Bhagavatam. And I will now ask our Madhav Kumar Prabhu, who is our in charge on this Bhadra campaign and Gomatsya, to say some words
on
this matter. He's here online.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan Prabhu, thank you so much for that.
Hare Krishna, Madhava
We
Prabhu.
definitely need all the encouragement and motivation all the time.
Y'all are doing brilliantly. Y'all already done.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna,
So many sets. Y'all are really leading the way. Wonderful.
Drop in the ocean. Prabhu, thank you so much for that. I just wanted to say, in addition to what Vrindavan Prabhu has already said, it's written in so many places. We were studying Nectar of Devotion this morning, and it's mentioned that the Lord is in his Narayan form in your home if you have Srimad-Bhagavatam. So Srimad-Bhagavatam is his literature incarnation. So that's the value of this voluminous literature that the Acharyas, like Srila Prabhupada, have left for us. Srimad-Bhagavatam campaign is on, and we have so many options for people to not just take a set, but also get help with systematic learning. There are multiple weekly sessions on. If you need more details, please either contact Gaura Nataraj Prabhu or myself. So there is plenty of support in place to help with your reading and systematic understanding of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. We have some contests and lucky draw and other activities going on as well. We have Srimad-Bhagavatam, apart from English, in 5 different regional Indian languages. We have it in Tamil, Telugu, Gujarati, Bengali, and Hindi as well. And the prices are available slightly cheaper than the English version. So please do not feel limited to the English version only. If you have a family or a friend who would prefer it in a regional language, then there are options for you also. Please get in touch for price and other options, not just to get a set, but also to get plenty of support that is available for your systematic reading and study of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Thank you so much. We've got 2 more weeks left. Please reach out if you need any help, you're interested to either take it for yourself or gift a family and friend. Anybody who either takes a set or donates a set for the next 2 weeks until the Bhadra date arrives, their names will be chanted and recited in Namisharanya fire sacrifice at the end of the Bhadra month. So it's a very, very auspicious opportunity. Please take part in some way or the other. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Madhakumar Prabhu. So
just one more announcement, Prabhu, please.
Yes.
We have arranged a Bhagavad Katha event next week, Saturday and Sunday, 5 o'clock to 7:30, with a very, very distinguished speaker, His Grace Radhika Raman Prabhu. Wow. He's going to speak about the glories of Srimad-Bhagavatam. We've arranged it from Bhaktivedanta Manor, but we'll extend the online invitation to the Manchester community also, who would like to attend that Bhagavad Katha event.
That's brilliant, Prabhu. Thank you very much. If you could kindly share the link with me, and then I'm happy to share it with our congregation.
We'll do. We're just setting up the event at the moment. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. And so at this time, I would like to ask Radhamohan Prabhu if he has anything to say. Radhamohan Prabhu has distributed many copies of Srimad-Bhagavatam over the last few months. And he's here on the Zoom call. I was wondering if he wants to say anything.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So thank you very much, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu. This is another boost for us to keep going in our service to Srila Prabhupada. So yes, please pray and bless us that we can do our service with more rigor and enthusiasm. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, you're already empowered, Radhamohan Prabhu. It's nice to hear your voice after some time. All the devotees there are empowered. It's just we just have to think, how can we do? How can we do? And with that thought, Prabhupada says the empowerment to do will come. We just have to think how to do.
That's a nice way, Prabhu. You said, how can we do? That's you're really motivated us that even if you're not able to do fully, but if you can just think, how can we do? We'll get liberated. Wonderful. Yes. Thank you. I'll just ask the devotees, anybody has any questions or comments, and there are some devotees on YouTube as well. Those devotees on YouTube live, if you type your questions or comments in, I will read them out to Prabhuji. So let's see, there are a number of comments appreciating for your wonderful class. Number of devotees are mentioned on Zoom. Thank you so much for that, Prabhu. Really appreciate.
Thank you.
I'm just waiting. So this 20 minutes video, is it available on YouTube, or is it just your personal copy that you?
Which video, Prabhu?
You said Gomatsya video.
No, I was going to show a video. It's called As Brilliant as the Sun. It shows how Prabhupada and his disciples printed. Now we take it for granted. We think we can just come to the temple, call Madhava Prabhu, can I have a set of Bhagavatam? And he just arrives. Our great fortune in Kali Yuga, I told you the story of Srinivasacharya. How difficult it was to get. You needed to know Sanskrit, you need to have tribes. But Prabhupada has made it so accessible to us, we take it for granted, But this video is called As Brilliant as the Sun. Go onto YouTube, search As Brilliant as the Sun.
Okay, so it is available on YouTube.
It's on YouTube, As Brilliant as the Sun, and it shows you how from the point Prabhupada transcribes to the point it gets printed. It's a beautiful video. It'll give us some appreciation. When we get this Bhagavatam, we just don't take it for granted. Sure. It is something very precious. That's 5,000 years of meditation and labor has finally arrived to us.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Prabhu. So I will, find out that video and try and distribute to our, share the link with our local community. Once again, thank you so much for your time and wonderfully, taking us through the journey and motivating us to read and distribute Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is really appreciated. Thank you once again. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much for having me. It's my
Hare
honor and privilege.
Krishna, His Grace,
Hare
Vrindavan
Krishna.
Chandra Prabhu ki jai,
Srila
Bhadra
Prabhupada
campaign ki
ki
jai,
jai,
Srimad-Bhagavatam ki
Srimad-Bhagavatam ki
jai,
jai.
Nitai Gaura Premanandi,
Hari
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 Bol.
Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and our next festival is Radhashtami, which is on the 26th of August. So it will be celebrated again virtually, and full details will be available nearer the time. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hare Krishna.